What if your need to disappear wasn't weakness, but wisdom? What if your silence, your withdrawal, your deliberate absence from the noise of the world, wasn't a sign of failure, but the beginning of something sacred? In a society addicted to visibility, productivity, and validation, choosing to isolate yourself is seen as dangerous, almost suspicious. But perhaps that's the wound we need to look at. Because the deeper question isn't, why are you isolating, but rather, what are you protecting yourself from? You might be fighting battles so silent that even your closest ones can't hear the screams. You might be dragging chains inherited from generations, locked in patterns invisible to your own conscious mind. And maybe, just maybe, the withdrawal isn't running away, it's a return. A return to yourself. Before we go further, take a moment. If you feel this message touches something unspeakable within you, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below, and share this video with someone you know is silently burning inside. Let's break the illusion together, not by shouting louder, but by going deeper. The theme today is not simply isolation. It's a question that burns beneath the surface of modern life. What happens when the world outside becomes too loud for the soul to breathe? What if the true revolution is not in fighting harder, achieving more, or proving your worth, but in choosing to pause, to step back, to disappear from the stage and enter the backstage of your own psyche? Carl Jung called this journey the descent into the shadow. Nietzsche saw the loner as a precursor to transformation. Viktor Frankl reminded us that even in the darkest cells, there can be meaning. Isolation, when chosen with awareness, isn't exile, it's incubation. You're not broken for needing to be alone. You're waking up. But, what if the very silence you fear, is the doorway your unconscious has been waiting for? What if your so-called collapse is the soul's way of clearing the noise so you can finally hear yourself? Stay with me, because what we call loneliness might be something else entirely, a revolution happening in slow motion, beneath the noise, beneath the ego, beneath the narcissus mirror. We don't fear silence because it's empty, we fear it because it's full. Full of what we've ignored, denied, or buried. That's why so many chase noise, endless scrolling, endless goals, endless distraction. Because when the outer world quiets down, the inner world starts to speak, and it speaks in truths we're not ready to hear. No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, said Carl Jung, but by making the darkness conscious. And yet, we avoid that darkness at all costs. We fear what's hidden in us more than we fear what's chasing us from the outside. But the irony is brutal. In trying to protect ourselves from pain, we often end up running from the very parts of us that hold the key to our freedom. There's a split inside every human being, a fault line between who we are and who we pretend to be. We want truth, but fear exposure. We want connection, but hide behind masks. Nietzsche's words cut to the core, become who you are. But how can we do that, when most of us have spent our lives becoming who we thought others needed us to be? We perform. We adapt. We shrink or exaggerate ourselves depending on the room we're in. And in that constant shape-shifting, we lose the thread of our true self. The desire to isolate, then, is not always escapism. Sometimes, it's an act of survival, the soul refusing to participate in the performance any longer. Much of what we call choice is actually repetition. We reenact unconscious scripts passed down by family, culture, trauma. You think you're choosing solitude, but perhaps it's your nervous system choosing safety. You think you're afraid of silence, but maybe you were never taught how to be alone without feeling abandoned. Schopenhauer wrote that the deeper the thinker, the more solitude becomes their natural state. But solitude is not just a matter of intellect, it's the return to an inner place where clarity begins. Where the static of inherited beliefs falls away. The problem is, no one teaches us to sit in silence without trying to fix, perform, or escape. So we label this return to self as weird, unproductive, or selfish, instead of what it really is, sacred. Behind every act of self-sabotage is a story we've accepted as truth. A whisper from the past saying, "You're not enough, you'll be left, you must stay visible or you'll disappear for real." These voices don't scream, they influence. They shape what we say yes to. They shape what we abandon before it begins. Gabor Mate reminds us that what we call normal is often the collective trauma of a society that has forgotten how to feel. Voluntary isolation, then, becomes a rebellion. A quiet, deliberate rebellion against patterns that have numbed us. It's not the silence that hurts, it's the confrontation with everything we became to avoid hearing our own soul speak. And yet, that confrontation is the beginning of liberation. Look closely. Have you ever asked yourself why you keep falling into the same traps, the same fears, the same self-sabotaging patterns? It's tempting to blame the world, the people, the circumstances. But the real battlefield is not out there. It's in here, in the tangled web of your own psyche. The masks you wear, the roles you play, the silences you fill with noise. Sometimes, what you call destiny is nothing more than the echo of unseen trauma repeating itself. You are not powerless. You are enacting a story you haven't yet had the courage to rewrite. Carl Jung taught us about the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we refuse to see because they bring shame, fear, or pain. But the shadow is not the enemy. It is a part of the whole self. Ignoring it only gives it more power to control you from the darkness. Gabor Mate speaks of undigested pain, the emotional wounds lodged in the nervous system, unprocessed and alive beneath the surface of everyday life. These wounds shape how you respond to love, success, and even solitude itself. To confront your shadow is to begin reclaiming your freedom, but it takes brutal honesty and a willingness to sit with discomfort. Ask yourself, where did the fear come from? The fear of being seen? Of being abandoned? Of being silent? These fears are not born in isolation, they sprout from childhood, from moments when your voice was dismissed, your pain ignored, your true self misunderstood. The masks you carry, the strong one, the pleaser, the invisible, are survival tools shaped by those early wounds. They protected you then, but now they trap you. The paradox is painful, you seek isolation to find peace, yet your fear of solitude's silence makes you run back into noise that numbs rather than heals. Within you, light and dark dance endlessly, desire and guilt, freedom and fear, love and rejection. Nietzsche's challenge, "Become who you are," is not a gentle invitation, it's a call to embrace both your brilliance and your shadows. To know yourself means to face the contradictions, to welcome the broken parts with the same compassion you offer your strengths. Only then can you stop running in circles. Only then can silence become a refuge instead of a prison. Only then can the Narcissus effect be broken. So, what if your greatest enemy is not the world, but the parts of you you refuse to see? What if your withdrawal isn't a failure, but a plea for self-recognition? The silence you fear so much might be the mirror reflecting the truth you've long avoided. To stand in that silence, to confront your shadow without flinching, is the ultimate act of courage. It is the soil where new life begins, not by running away from yourself, but by meeting yourself face to face. This confrontation is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. Transformation is never about escaping your pain or silencing your shadow, it begins with facing them. To choose isolation as a form of revolution means embracing the difficult journey of self-knowledge. It requires a fierce responsibility to look inward without judgment, to lean into the discomfort instead of running from it. As Viktor Frankl taught us, even in the darkest moments, there lies a choice, the choice to find meaning within suffering, rather than be consumed by it. This is not an easy path, but it is the only one that leads to true freedom. There is power in acknowledging what you have repressed. The emotions, memories, and parts of yourself you have tried to hide, they want to be seen, heard, and understood. Carl Jung reminds us that what is not brought to consciousness returns as fate. But when you dare to hold your shadow with compassion, something shifts. The silence stops being a void and becomes a sacred space, a womb where new awareness can grow. It is here, in this interior sanctuary, that clarity emerges, like light filtering through a cracked window. There is no magic formula for healing or transformation. No one-size-fits-all prescription. The revolution of silence is a slow, unfolding process, a continuous dialogue between your conscious self and your unconscious depths. It is patience with your own rhythms and cycles, forgiveness for your past mistakes, and the willingness to stand in your own truth. The power lies not in perfection, but in presence. The awareness that every moment offers a new chance to awaken, to choose differently. Change does not come when you punish yourself for your flaws or weaknesses. It arrives the moment you recognize them, not as enemies, but as parts of your story. Change doesn't happen when you blame yourself, as Gabor Mate insightfully points out, but when you recognize yourself. This recognition dissolves the chains of unconscious repetition. It softens the internal critic. It opens a door to grace. When you choose to sit with your silence, not as a prison, but as a revolution, you begin to reclaim your power. So here is the invitation: lean into your solitude with curiosity instead of fear. Let the silence speak. Listen beyond the surface noise of your mind and society's demands. What if your deepest isolation is not loneliness, but a sacred waiting room? What if this silence is the language your soul has been trying to teach you all along? The revolution is not outside, it is inside you, in the space where light meets shadow, where surrender becomes strength, and where the wisdom of silence transforms your very being. The journey into silence is not a destination, it is a question without a final answer. It is an invitation to sit with your contradictions, to walk with your shadows, and to explore the hidden corners of your soul without rushing to label or fix. What does your silence reveal when you truly listen? Is it emptiness, or is it a deeper language waiting to be understood? The revolution of isolation is not about cutting ties with the world, but about reconnecting with yourself on a level so profound that everything else begins to shift naturally. Today, as you move through your day, I invite you to become an observer of your own inner landscape. Notice the moments when fear rises, when the urge to escape or numb yourself appears. Where do your patterns pull you? What stories does your mind replay? This isn't about judgment, it's about curiosity. The silence you carry inside may be telling you truths your words have never dared to speak. Are you ready to listen? To stop running from the parts of yourself that long for recognition and healing? If this message touched something deep within you, I encourage you to like this video, leave a comment sharing what silence means for you, and share it with someone who might also be navigating their own inner solitude. Together, we build a community where silence is not feared, but honored. Where isolation is not weakness, but courage. Are you ready to stop running from yourself? Observe your silence. Maybe it says more than your words ever could. If this content spoke to you, watch now the video that will appear on your screen. It might be exactly what your soul needed to hear today.